This video is going to talk about, continue with our discussion of planning and talk specifically about the situation analysis piece of the strategic planning process. So situation analysis, and this for sure is something you'll get into a lot more detail in 495. This is really just a really broad brush look at what this is all about. But in addition to determining the overall purpose, the reason for being, an organization also needs to really engage with its environment to figure out, what's going on, where are we, where are we heading, where are we now. You may very often want to have the situation analysis take place concurrently with the developing and the articulation of that core purpose, that core mission. So the situation analysis, is a very complex, resource-intensive, labor-intensive process if done well. And that's another opportunity for strategic consultants to come in and work with organizations on this. Many big organizations get a lot of external help from experts in doing this and going through this process. But to kind of, again, just to introduce you to the idea, a simple way to think about it is I think it answers two basic questions. What's going on in the present environment and possible future environments? And by environment, I mean the business environment, the global environment, the everything out there. And it's really all-encompassing. What's going on out there now, and what do we expect might be going out there in the foreseeable future? And how does what's going on out there pertain to us, both who we are right now and how we might be in the future? How is that relevant to our own effectiveness? So again, like I said, this is to gather information on this is very labor-intensive, resource-intensive. These are very big questions. But the answering of those questions is really essentially what a situation analysis is. To kind of make it a little bit more concrete, a consulting firm developed a tool that is now widely used and has been widely used in business for a while called a SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis, or sometimes people call it a SCOT analysis, S-C-O-T, because they change out the W for a different word. It's the same thing. They just call it something else, but it's the same thing. SWOT analysis is an acronym, and each of the letters stands for a different piece of the puzzle that they're trying to understand. So the S stands for strengths. And this is about saying, when you're doing a SWOT analysis, you're trying to identify strengths. W is for weaknesses, O is for opportunities, and T is for threats. In a SCOT analysis, C stands for challenges instead of weaknesses. Again, same thing. So strengths, what do we do what do we have going for us internally? As an organization, what do we have that serves us, that is an asset to us? The goal of looking at strengths, ideally, is to try to get a sense of what are our core competencies. What do we do well that it's really difficult for other people to simply copy and do well? What's distinctive about us? What's our edge? Again, this is an internal question. So unique skill, unique resource, unique capability that our organization possesses that other organizations may not or may struggle with. You think about what makes Apple such an industry leader. Yeah, they have some pretty slick products. When it first came out, everybody was really excited about the pinch and enlarge function on the iPhone. But now they all do that, right? So that little bit of technology is copyable. That's not a core competency, that little idea, because it's copyable. What is distinctive about Apple in a broad sense? What are their core competencies? You could probably argue that the design of their product is one of the things that makes them so distinctive. It's not just that they have functioning products. A lot of people have functioning products. In fact, many people may have better products. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. But the look, the appeal, the visual appeal of their products is really what gives them an edge. Their design department is known to be extremely high performing, very talented. And they've shown time and again that they can really make these slick things. Even the packaging that their stuff comes in is really sophisticated and really cool. So that is a core competency. It's really difficult for another company to say, oh, we want our products to be just like that. Let's also make them really cool and slick looking. You can't just do it, right? Apple's really good at integrating hardware and software because they develop their own software and they do their own hardware. So that integration could be seen as a core competency, perhaps. Anyway, you're thinking about what is it that this company does well that is hard for other people to just simply pick up and copy. Okay, weaknesses. These are things internally that we don't do so well. What are we lacking? Where do we struggle? Are there resources that we struggle to get that are not available to us? O stands for opportunities. What's out there that is really bodes well for us, that's positive for us. And T stands for threats. What are some negative external factors out there that threaten us, that could hurt us or hinder our ability to be effective? So the key thing I want you to notice here is that strengths and weaknesses pertain to the organization internally. Right? These are questions about who we are now, what we're capable of now, or what we maybe could develop a capability in down the road internally. Opportunities and threats are external elements. These are what's going on out there, right? So what's out there that's favorable to us that we might want to take advantage of? Opportunity. What's out there that's threatening, that looms over us, that could have a negative impact on us that we should be aware of, right? And it's a little easier, I think, at this point to kind of think about the internal stuff, to say what do we do well, what don't we do well. You could just, it's a little bit more difficult, I think, for a student at this point to think about, well, what are the kinds of things that you would look out there and see as an opportunity or as a threat. I mean, sure, yeah, the global economic condition is a big one. If we're in boom years, that's a great opportunity for a lot of companies. If we're in a recession, that could be a big threat for a lot of companies. Similarly, recessions can bode well for certain companies. There are certain companies that do really well in a recession because of the kinds of products they make. Like if you're in the canned goods business, people don't go out to eat as much in a recession. They eat at home more and they have simpler meals. And so that kind of business will do well in a recession. So the economic trends around the world and regionally and globally can certainly serve as opportunities and threats. But another aspect of this is to think, I mean, usually when people think about, well, what is the most threatening to a company? The first thing that usually pops into people's head is, well, other companies that are in their industry. They're competitors, they're rivals, right? And that was kind of the starting point here with this identification of competitive forces by Porter, who's an academic. I'm going to show you an array of a few different potential opportunities or threats and that were identified by Porter. And he started really with that idea, saying kind of at the center of it all is a rivalry among competing firms. Yeah, Apple is essentially in competition with other firms like Microsoft, right? They're threats to each other, right? If Microsoft is doing really well, Apple might struggle. If Apple's doing really well, Microsoft might struggle. And that's a kind of an intense rivalry. I mean, the high-tech industry is intense. There's a lot of media attention on it. It's a very big, lucrative industry. Technology is changing constantly. So it's a pretty intense industry, and so the rivalry between firms is intense. I mean, there are other industries where the rivalry is not very intense. So you could think of, if you think of marketing, the way firms kind of play themselves off of each other, the more aggressive a marketing campaign is probably some indication of how much rivalry there is between these firms. So yeah, that competition between firms is a big part of what could present an opportunity for a firm, what presents a threat. If a firm goes out of business or is struggling, that's an opportunity for its competitor to grab market share. If it's doing really well, that's a threat, right? But there's other things to pay attention to too, and this is where Porter kind of came in and said, yeah, we got to think bigger than that. It's not just about the firm. You also want to pay attention to essentially the supply chain, right? The suppliers, where an organization gets its materials that it then produces into its product. Like where does Starbucks get their coffee? The coffee growers are suppliers for Starbucks. Where does Apple get the parts to manufacture its products? Those are the suppliers. So you could say, how much power do those suppliers have over the firm? Or does the firm have power over its suppliers? And customers, who does the firm sell to? And what kind of power do they have? Do they have a lot of choice? Is there a lot of, do they have a lot of clout, let's say, relative to the firm in question, right? And so, again, when you look at both of these things, they can present opportunities, they can present threats. right? If you have a lot of leverage over your suppliers or over your buyers, your customers, then that's an opportunity for you. That's something to take advantage of. If the environment is such that it's the other way around, then that might not be the case. That might present challenges for you. You can also pay attention to not just your current rivalry now, but some potential things that might happen in the future, right? So first of all, if you're in an industry, whatever industry you're in, it may be easier or harder for new people to come online and start to compete with you. If you're Boeing, you're probably not too worried about a lot of new airplane manufacturers getting started. That's going to take a tremendous amount of money and investment to get an operation like that up and running and to be a major threat. So, Boeing probably doesn't worry too much about this compared to, let's say, something much simpler. Like, if you make a soft drink or a bottled water or some sort of other beverage, it's not going to take that much work for a new player to come online, and this happens all the time. With like the energy drinks of late, or Snapple and the fruit drinks before that, or water, different bottled water. I mean, all this stuff, like new entrants coming in to create competition. Another thing would be substitute products, which is related to this. So it's not just new people producing products directly similar to yours, but it's people producing products that could eventually replace yours. Be an alternative to yours. So I always think of the Walkman. I used to have a Walkman, a tape player. If you don't know, hopefully you know. I'm not that old. A portable tape player. Who has Walkman anymore? I don't even think they make them anymore. Those have been substituted by other things. Maybe they tried with the Discman for a while. Those skipped a lot. Then the iPods and the MP3 players came along. And now it's all about the smartphones that replaced all that. I mean, Apple sort of substituted itself by creating a really cool iPhone that ended up taking away from its iPod, its standalone iPod. So these substitute products can create opportunities and threats for firms as well, either to steal market share or to worry about losing market share.